Welcome to the Can We Talk About It podcast.
I'm Jude.
And I'm Tori.
And this podcast is about us having open, honest dialogue about stuff that we've been dealing with in our lives, especially as two young girls in our 20s.
Some conversations will be heavier than others. Some may be funny, sad, or even triggering.
This is an open playground where we can talk about anything. Hence the title, Can We Talk About It?
So let's get talking. Hello and welcome to the first official episode of Can We Talk About It, where today we'll be talking about feeling stuck, whether that be in work, life, love, etc., and how we get out of that.
So we chose this topic specifically because it is something that both Tori and I have been dealing with a lot lately, and we felt that maybe having a conversation about it would help us sort through and decipher like all these messy feelings and emotions that come with feeling stuck. And maybe some of you who might be going through the same thing or similar circumstances could also benefit from hearing us talk about it.
So I know for me, the biggest thing that I've been stuck on is this whole post-graduate life. And I'm in this weird limbo of like, I gotta find a job. What exactly do I want to do with my career? Like, I just keep having all these hard times making decisions, and I just like, I have no motivation to do anything.
Yeah, I think for me as well, like I've been feeling pretty stuck lately just because I just finished my freshman year of college and I'm trying to really figure out, like obviously I still have 3 or 4 years left of college until I graduate, but I'm trying to figure out, is this the right path for me to be on? And I want to make sure that I'm doing everything that I want to do with the time that I have and making sure I'm not missing out on anything. So that's one thing that's been like get me all out of whack. And then just with making sure that I have like the right type of people in my life. Also, you know, just anxiety and feeling like you're not good enough sometimes. Those are all things, but yeah.
Yeah, and we kind of wrote our own list of reasons why we are kind of feeling stuck. And we wanted to share them with you guys and kind of go in depth into each one. And maybe this will give you some insight if you're feeling that sort of stuck in a rut stage.
So the first reason that we came up with is you're more worried about what other people think or feel, and so you hold yourself back. For me, that kind of includes needing external validation a lot of the times, like comparing myself to other people and trying to like live up to other people's expectations. Those are all just kind of things that fall under that point for me personally.
Yeah. I never really have this need to like have that external like validation. You and I've talked about this outside of the podcast, but for me, I'm like, I don't care. If you don't care about it, I don't care. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not really for me, but I do agree with the whole like comparing yourself to others and kind of where you are in your life versus where they are, and this whole living up to expectations thing, especially now that I'm a little bit older and I just got done with school. And so like this expectation to find a job and get all this like health insurance stuff that my dad keeps pressuring me about. And he's like, you have 2 years. And I'm like, okay, 2 years is a really long time. So like, calm down. Yeah. But just this idea of also having the, I wouldn't say unrealistic expectations for myself, but just like expectations for myself. I don't want to say that they're unrealistic, right. But just having this need to every day wake up, and because I don't have a job at the moment, it's like, okay, you need to hurry up and find a job. You need to hurry up and find a job. You're going to be homeless at the end of August. Like, it's just a lot of things. And, you know, I've been working on this book for several years at this point, and I'm just like, I got to hurry up and I just hurry, period. And because I have this weird pressure, I guess, I just don't want to do any of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I feel like a lot of what you said right there reminds me of something that I thought about before, which is like this pressure to do everything in such a short amount of time. But we're so freaking young. I feel like there's this pressure just in society for people to be successful like at such a young age and to like do X, Y, and Z things by a certain age and all this other stuff. I felt so pressured because I started dancing when I was 16, and I was basically like, I was behind everybody else. And so I feel like that's one place where like a lot of my anxiety with dance has come from, is like I as soon as I got into dancing, I felt this inherent need to rush and to do everything right now because I felt like I was running out of time. I felt like I was behind everybody else, and I felt like this need to catch up. And I told myself, I was like, I have to work 10 times harder than everybody else if I want to even be on their level, and then I have to work 10 times harder than that if I want to be exceptional. And I put that pressure on myself a lot, and I don't want to blame other people for like me trying to live up to some sort of expectation, because I feel like a lot of times like I built those expectations myself and other people saw that, and then they started holding me up to those expectations that I built for myself. And so when I didn't meet those expectations, like I just got burnt out, and then it was just really exhausting.
I 100% agree with that, because I think sometimes, especially kind of looking at my own family, and I think they saw kind of how I was, and they only expect that. And even if it's something that I've been working on, whether it's like something that's negative that I've been trying to change, about like, you know, people always, my family always complain that I'm like lazy and I'm spoiled, right? But now it's like, I don't have a choice but to be taking care of myself, but to make my own money, that kind of thing. And so I think with my family seeing how I was, and they just expect the same now, and it's, I'm probably not explaining myself properly, but you know, it's just one of those things where it's like, whenever I say something, they're going to be like, oh, well, what about so-and-so, what you did 3 years ago? And it's like, okay, 3 years ago, that was different. I had started college and my mind was different 3 years ago. You're a different
person, yeah.
You know, I think that kind of leads us into our number 2, which is you can't let go. And your sort of, you know, fear of outgrowing those around you, this idea of, you know, you're stuck in the past. And I think that that's kind of contributes to like the stuck feeling too. Fear of outgrowing those around you. And I think especially when you're younger, you are so connected to your friends in such a different way. You know what I mean? I think even looking at the relationships that I have with my friends now versus how we were with each other when we were in high school, and you know, we're all very still close at the same time, but like our dynamic is so different now, because when we were in high school, it's like, if you don't respond, I'm going to think you hate me. Where it's now, it's like I can go a week, 2 weeks, a few months without talking to a friend, and all of a sudden they're like, girl, what you doing? And I'm like, hey, all right, cool. But I think when you're in high school, you all kind of want to stay the same because you don't want to grow up. You know what I'm saying? And I know for me, being in high school and being around the group of friends that I had, we kind of all were so stuck to each other. And it got to the point where even for me, once I started getting into like my senior year of high school, when I started to get older and I was going from 17 to 18 and like, okay, I'm graduating. What am I going to do? Like, it's the start of the new life, you know, new phase in your life. And I always felt like I kind of stuck out like a sore thumb with my friends. And I was always so different from what they liked and from what they wanted to do. I was even wearing different clothing, like, you know, and my attitude was just so different. Like, I was into comic books and movies and tattoos and concerts and rock music. And it was one of those things where it's like, all of my girlfriends were like, let's go out and date. Let's go out and party. And I'm like, I'd rather just stay at home by myself and look stupid, you know? And that just wasn't, you know, and I was just afraid of what if I outgrow these people and I never talk to them again, because these are my friends that I've known my whole life. And I don't know if it was like this in your district where you go to school, but in our district, you pretty much are with the same people from the time that you start school until the time that you are done with high school. And because there's so many colleges around Texas, people tend to just stay there. And so you go to college and you're basically with the same group of kids anyway. So
let me ask, are you still friends with your friends from high school?
There's a few that we're still friends with.
Okay.
There was like a group of us. We were like, it was like 5 or 6 of us. And I only talked to 2 of them.
Okay.
but also like I still have like my actual like best friend that I've met when I was in 5th grade. Her and I talk to each other all the time. She messaged me yesterday, you know what I'm saying? And and then the other 2, we had dinner when I was in Houston for 4th of July. But it's, you know, we they're still there, but our dynamic is so different now.
And that's so funny because for me, I'm not friends with anyone from high school. Like, I literally don't have contact with anyone that I went to high school with. That was a big thing for me, especially when I started getting depressed. That was a big thing. Like, I felt like at that point, the reason I got so depressed was because I was finally starting to like look at my life and try to figure out who I was. And a lot of me figuring out who I was growing apart from people and growing away from people. And okay, just so you guys know, Tori just told me that this coffee tastes like trash. I made us coffee before this podcast started, and it does taste like garbage. I agree.
I don't understand why, because it was good yesterday or 2 days ago.
I think it's because I made it, and I don't know how to make Dunkin' coffee. I'm a Starbucks bougie kid.
Starbucks is not good.
I don't like Dunkin'. Dunkin' is cheap, and it tastes like really just... the beans are gross. I don't like them.
The beans are gross.
Anyways.
No offense to Dunkin' or Starbucks.
Oh, we're not sponsored by anyone, so.
No. But if you want, call us. I'm just saying.
Right. We will definitely be sponsored by Starbucks because I support them.
Anyway, back to your friends in high school.
Yeah, so my friends in high school, they hated Starbucks, so I couldn't be friends with them. No.
Yeah. But I think that kind of also goes into, like, you're stuck in the past, too.
Yeah, so for the longest time, I was so stuck, like, wanting to hold on to these people that just weren't helping me grow in the direction I needed to grow. Like, I didn't want to lose them because they were the only people I had. I had such a hard time making friends.
Yeah.
And they were the only people that I had, and I didn't want to be alone because I was so afraid of, like, being alone. And so...
That's it right there,
yeah.
I think. Because you are so close to your friends in high school.
Yeah, it took a lot of courage for me to basically say, look, y'all are great, but there's a lot of shit that's not okay with these relationships. Like, there was some toxic stuff that was going on. It wasn't because any of us were bad people. It's just like we were immature and we didn't understand each other as well as we perhaps needed to, and we weren't able to provide for each other's needs. And so, yeah, it got to the point where I was like, I can't be friends with these people anymore. Like, they're not helping me go in the direction I need to go. I'm not going to be able to become the person I want to be with these people in my life. And it was nothing against them because they were all great people, but, like, I felt like I was being held back by holding on to that. Yeah, I was just really afraid of, like, moving on without them because, like, I thought they were going to be my life forever, and then they weren't. And you know what? I feel like I'm honestly, like, I don't regret that as much as, like, I do miss, like, them as people, like, in our friendship. Like, I honestly feel like I'm better off without it.
Yeah.
And I had to make that tough decision for myself, and it was really, really hard.
I remember I wrote this personal essay not too long ago. I think I told you a little bit about this, but I basically was trying to figure out, like, what was the basis of my feeling in this weird limbo.
Right.
And in my essay I wrote, like, I feel like I'm just waiting for the next bad thing to happen. And for me, it's like, okay, I'm just waiting for the next friend that I'm gonna lose, right?
Exactly.
Or yeah. I'm waiting for the next, like, failed idea that I'm gonna have in my head. Or I'm waiting for the next, you know, not to get too deep, but, like, I'm just waiting for, like, the next parent to pass away. You know what I mean? And it's just one of those things where it's like, I'm waiting for something bad to happen instead of actively engaging in my life and just, you know, growing and existing and moving forward. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think just also just scared to, you know, it kind of goes back to, like, you know, letting go of, like, the past, being stuck in the past, and just, I just get worried that what if I overexceed past this particular place in my life and the people that are there, because I feel like I don't want to leave anybody behind, or you know, not to sound like presumptuous or anything, but you know what I mean, just like what if, like, how can I get to be my best self? Like, I'm afraid of that, I guess. Mm-hmm. I guess kind of goes into number 3.
It kind of leads into our third reasons that you are stuck. Number 3 is you don't trust yourself.
There's certain things that I can look back on when I was younger, maybe in my late teens. You know, I'm still in, well, I guess, no, I'm technically mid-20s, but, like, when I was, like, in the early stages of 2021, there are certain things that I was like, oh, I know for a fact that I would not have been able to trust myself with that emotion back then, but now not so much. For example, when I was 18, or really 17 to, like, 21, I would not trust myself in a relationship with anybody.
That's how I feel right now.
Right. Yeah. Like, don't, yeah, exactly. But, like, don't put me in a romantic situation with anybody. Like, I've had friends, but, like, don't put me in somebody's life to be a romantic partner, because it's just not going to work. And now it's like, okay, trust myself in a romantic relationship because I'm not putting up with anybody's bullshit. So give me something. When I was 18 to 21, I was like, oh, I trust myself to for example, I trust myself to be on my own, and I trust myself to write this book, and I trust myself to like lose weight and take care of myself and eat properly and have healthy friendships with people and just relationships, period, with people, no romantic. But now it's like, oh, I don't trust myself to do any of that. So I'm not even going to do it,
Yeah, and it's weird because, like, for example, like when I was in high school, I did not trust myself to cut toxic people out of my life. I did not trust myself to make relationships or invest in the right ways into those relationships. Sometimes I would invest too much and people would take advantage of me. And that's always been, like, a flaw of mine is that, like, I invest too much into people and then I get taken advantage of. And so that's something I feel like over time I've pulled back from. And, like, I've learned a better balance, but now sometimes I'm afraid to take a risk with those things. So it's like, I feel like over time, like you have to like play like this game of push and pull with trying to balance like, okay, like how much can I trust myself with this? But also like sometimes you do have to take a risk even if you don't trust yourself with those things. You can't let just because something has hurt you before like stop you from doing something else. And so like for now, like in the past, like I really struggle with like friendships and with time management and like taking care of myself. I feel like I'm getting a lot better at those things. I feel way more comfortable being on my own than I used to. I'm very good at like, if somebody's very toxic in my life, like especially with friendships, I will cut that person out like it's nothing. Like I'll be like, bye, I don't need you. But with romantic relationships, that's a whole other story. That's something that I still don't trust myself with.
It's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, it's a whole other podcast.
I like what you said though about you have to trust yourself to take the risk. And I think that's where I'm going to make up a word, stuckerization has come from.
Stuckerization?
You know what I'm saying? I'm going to make it up because I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I know I need to take a risk. I know I need to leap. And I know I need to do all these things, but it's like I don't trust myself to even attempt to try. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the craziest thing.
Yeah. Number 4, ooh, this one's one of my favorites. Your patterns rule you.
Oh my God. This is probably between this one and the next point, I feel like are super deep because I am the queen of doing the same thing over and over again. And my dad and I were having this conversation just like today's Sunday? We had this conversation Saturday morning. So that was just yesterday. And he was like, you know what the definition of insane is, right? And I was like, yeah. He's like, you realize it's doing the same thing over again, expecting different results. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, so why are you still doing the same thing? And I was like, look, don't ask questions, okay?
Don't ask questions.
Don't focus on the negative. I don't know. But it's one of those things where it's like,
you're literally insane.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I keep doing the same thing over again. And the crazy part is that, like, I know that I'm doing it. I'm just like, I can't stop. I'm like, it's like I'm like an addict. I know that I don't need to keep doing this, but I can't stop.
Yeah. And like I think another thing is like you're not being accountable for yourself. It's like you know what you're doing, but you're just like, no, I'm gonna blame everything else but myself, and I'm not gonna keep myself on top of my shit. Either that or you just ignore your problems altogether. Yeah. That's another thing that can happen.
Yeah.
I know for myself, like I'm better now, but in the past, I've always been like I distract myself. Like I'm very big on escapism to deal with your problems, guys. Just binge watch TV for hours and hours if you don't want to think.
Just go to sleep.
Or just go to sleep. Or just work yourself to death so you don't have any time to like think about anything else. Those are all been things that I have been prone to doing. So number 5, you're numb, distracted, or convinced that you can cobble the pieces of your life together.
I think that's really good, especially when you've kind of hit, like you said, like a plateau. And it's like, okay, no, it's fine. I swear it's fine. But in reality, it's like you've lost all control. You lack confidence. You're not really present with what's going on. You keep sort of thinking about either what you've already done or thinking about what you need to do now, but it's not really working, or thinking about what I need to do next Friday at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
So you're not really present with actively engaging in what's going on in your life right now.
Yeah, and a big thing for me is like you're numb. I feel like empty sometimes. And like, I'm just kind of moving through the motions. So I'm just on autopilot. That can make me feel like so stuck sometimes.
Yeah.
Distracted is like kind of like you said, like I'm not present. Like I'm either thinking about the past or I'm thinking about the future, but I'm not thinking about what I can do in this moment. I'm too busy overthinking everything else. Like, or like I'm also sometimes, like I said, like before, I'm trying to like distract myself by escapism, like doing this and that, and like I'm just ignoring like the problems that are like underneath, and I'm not attacking those problems that are like really bothering me. So I'm like distracting myself from them instead.
I think also too for me, I know sometimes I'll be like laying in bed or I'll be like watching something and all of a sudden like a few minutes have gone by and I realize I don't have any active thoughts. Like I'm just literally like, you've seen the movie Click, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where he's on autopilot and they're at the birthday dinner for the daughter and like everybody's moving around, acting all fast around him. He's just sitting there like quiet eating, going, mm-hmm. That's literally how I feel sometimes, where it's just, I'm like numb. I don't have any emotion, I don't have any feeling. And then all of a sudden I'll like snap back into reality. Oh, there goes gravity. But yeah, I'll like snap back and I'm like, yo, I haven't thought about anything. And at that point, sometimes like an hour has gone by or sometimes a whole week has gone by and I'm just like, yo, I haven't done anything. I haven't had an active thought. I've just been literally stationary.
And I think something that is like big on that for me is I need time to think. Like I need time to be in my own head. And like sometimes being too much in my own head is bad, but like sometimes I can be too much like not in my head. Like I'm so busy like going with what everyone else is doing. Like I'll be either like in my work or I'll be doing like in my social life. Like I won't have any time to myself. Yeah. And so I have no time to think. And then like I'll realize like 1, 2, 3 weeks have gone by and I haven't had a moment to myself to just breathe and like really connect with what's going on inside of me.
I think kind of, touching on that before we go on to number 6, things are too noisy where I can't pay attention to anything. Mm-hmm. When I was in high school and like early college, it was like that. And now everything is so peaceful and so quiet that I only have time for my thoughts. Mm-hmm. But because my thoughts are so loud all of a sudden, because I haven't been paying attention to them for 4 years, maybe mm-hmm. even longer than that with high school. And so it's like, now that everything's quiet, I'm just sitting here like consumed with all of these thoughts and I'm like, oh my God.
Existential
like,
crisis.
You know what I'm saying? And it's one of those things where it's just like, I don't know what to do with all of the stuff that's going on inside of my head.
Right. Yeah. And that's something that like it takes practice to like really be able to listen to yourself and work on that. So
yeah. So let's jump into our final point before we get into like the last segment of the podcast. And number 6 is you're waiting for perfect timing. Oh, I think this is probably like the best one in my head, in my opinion, because I love to think about this like picture perfect thing in my head. Every time I think about something, I'm like, oh yeah, when I get to be this age, I'm going to have this house with that dog, with that husband. I'm going to have this career. And I have this like picture perfect thing. And I'm like, okay, next Friday, I know for a fact that this is going to happen next Friday. And I'm like waiting for something to happen. And I keep having this beautiful grand scheme of like what I want my life to be like. But none of that's actually going to happen unless I, do something about it.
Yeah, get off your ass, Tori.
Exactly.
I feel like this is one that I have not actually struggled with as much. Like, of course, I've struggled with it, but like, I don't think to the extent that you seem to have like a connection with this point. I personally feel like maybe in the past I've struggled with this one more than I do now, just because like I'm very much like I do stuff in the moment. Like I live for the moment. Like I used to be the person that was always dreaming about the future, but now I'm like very much what if I die next week? What if I get hit by a bus? Like I want to make sure that like I'm doing everything that I can to build the life that I want to be in right now, right in this moment. And of course, it's important to think about the future. Don't just YOLO your way through life.
Nah.
That's how you get into financial problems and other bad life choices.
Right.
But I think one thing is like a lot of times we use like the fact that there's not like a great time to start, like, oh, I'm too busy right now. Like I don't have time to start this new project just because I've got X, Y, and Z things going on. I'll start this project when I'm not as busy, but we don't set like a time that we're going to do it. Like we're just kind of like vague. We keep pushing it off more and more and more, and we never actually start. And so I feel like if you want to start something, the time to start is now, even if it's only 10 minutes a day. Like if it really matters to you, you're going to start it now. If it's not that important to you, then you're not going to probably prioritize it anytime soon. I feel like also like people blame like a lack of resources to start things. Like, that's a big thing that I've noticed. Like, even for me, I used to struggle with was like, I don't have a mirror. I can't practice dancing.
Yeah.
And I don't have a studio space. I can't practice dancing. You know what I like ended up doing? Because my friend, I'm not friends with this girl anymore because we had a really toxic relationship. But the one good thing I got out of this relationship was she told me once, she was like, stop making excuses to not dance.
Yeah.
She was just kind of like, use what you have. Like, if you care enough, you will just use what you have. So I started going out at night and dancing in the reflection of windows in buildings, like in public. I got like I saved up like $50 to buy like a full length mirror, and I put it in my living room, and I danced in like a really small square space where I could barely move around. And like I would go in there and I would like move all the furniture like to the side of the room so I had more space, and I would just dance. And like I made do with what I had. Don't make excuses to keep putting those things off. Like, if you really care enough about it, like, you'll make do with what you have. Like, you'll find a way around it. You won't let all the bad things in life stop you.
I think that can sometimes add to the stuckness. Is, oh, I just ran into another obstacle, guess I have to quit now, or, oh, this is too hard, I'm not gonna even try.
Yeah. So, okay, let's go ahead and just like recap like what those main points were before we get into our tips to get unstuck. So our main reasons that you might possibly be stuck, number one was your more
words.
Okay.
Don't know how to speak.
Okay. So reasons you may be stuck. Number one, you're more worried about what other people think or feel, and so you hold yourself back. Number two, you can't let go. Number three, you don't trust yourself. Number four, your patterns rule you. Number five, you're numb, distracted, or convinced that you can cobble the pieces of your life together. Number six, you're waiting for the perfect timing.
For some reason, I thought you said your parents rule you.
Your parents rule you. Oh my goodness. Okay. So now that we've kind of gone over those really quickly, is there anything else you want to say before we get into the ways to get unstuck tips?
No, man, give me some advice. How do I get unstuck?
Right, because now that we've told you all these reasons that you may be stuck, which you may identify yourself with, we need to know how to get out of this, right? Because there's like, we're not trying to just send you into some spiral of like, I understand.
Oh my God, I'm depressed. Bye.
Like, exactly. So we kind of want to like give some practical advice on how to like work our way through this, because this sucks. And even we're not 100% through it ourselves, but these are things that are kind of helping us personally get out of it. And so we thought that like we kind of compiled this list, and we've been trying to make our way through this list as well. So number one, we have evaluate and identify the source of stuckness.
Yeah.
So
and that can be hard too. It's kind of like the whole like recovery programs that they go through. It's like number one, like realizing that you have a problem or something like that.
Right.
And I think this is realizing that, okay, I am stuck, but what exactly is the source of this? And that can be really hard. And sometimes that will kind of prolong the stuckness too.
It takes spending a lot of time with yourself, I think. And it can be hard really to find that source to like of what that is, which is kind of why we listed out all these different reasons that you might be feeling stuck. We hope that you can identify with at least one thing, and that might help you with that, because, and it can also be multiple reasons, honestly. Like, we can feel stuck in many different ways at once, and that's rough. But
like, it could be something like a relationship, a past relationship with someone that's kind of causing you to be stagnant.
No, or it could even just be something as simple as like one of your routines right now is just not working for you.
Right.
So with that, moving on to like the second one, force yourself to be proactive and get the fuck up.
Yeah, like that is probably the biggest one. Because it's like, I don't know how many times I've heard people tell me, especially whether it's like my brother or like someone who's like older than me, that is like, girl, get up. Like, why, like, just keep moving. And that's the hardest thing, is to just be proactive and get up. Because you and I both can agree to this, where it's like, sometimes we just don't want to get up and do anything.
Yeah, like, this is something I've been dealing with the past couple of days, and Tori's been witness to this awfulness. I feel so bad for her having to stick around through this.
My life is so hard.
It is. No, I've literally just been sitting on the couch or sitting in my bed watching Netflix, which I am not the type to watch a lot of Netflix. You guys should, if you know anything about me, this is only our first podcast, but if you guys come from my channel or anything like that, if you know anything about me, I'm constantly working, like I'm going to be productive 100% of the time. And even if I'm having leisure time, it's productive leisure time. Like I'm reading a book. Yeah. I'm bettering myself, okay? But lately, I have not been doing any of that. I've been sitting my ass on the couch, moping, feeling sad and empty inside, trying to distract myself with The Flash season 5 because I haven't watched it yet. I've literally just been crying on and off for literally no good reason at all. Like it's just, I don't know, I'm just sad, Tori. That's what it is. She's like, why are you sad? I'm like, I'm just sad.
You're okay.
You're fine. But yeah, like sometimes like I just don't have the motivation to even like get up and eat breakfast. Right. I'm like I don't even want to eat food. Yeah. Like I just want to sit here. If you bring me food, I'll put it in my mouth, I guess. But I don't otherwise I'd rather just sit here and starve because I don't want to put in the energy or the effort to get up and eat. Yeah. And like basic stuff like that, like as hard as it can be to get up sometimes, like you just have to force yourself to do like the very bare minimum. Get up. Like no matter how like unmotivated you feel, you like just get your ass up, drink a glass of water, put some food in your mouth. Go do like light exercise, like do stuff, like force yourself to do those things as hard as it can be. Like I think those things are just gonna like get you moving because if you don't do those things, like oh my god, you're gonna feel 10 times worse.
Yeah. And that kind of takes us to number 3, which is be patient with yourself and enjoy the process.
For sure, like being patient with yourself. Okay, so I told you I had this epiphany in the shower the other day while I was thinking about this episode of the podcast. It kind of relates to this point is that I feel like getting stuck is an opportunity to grow. Okay. It's basically like the universe or life or whatever you want to believe in telling you that like you are stuck. You need to identify why you're stuck and make some changes. Right. And like this is your opportunity to make those changes that are going to help you grow and get to the next level or the next stage in your life. I feel like whether that's like a mental block or physical like block, it's just a way for us to like keep moving forwards. And as frustrating as it can feel to be like stuck in something, I think it's really natural. Like it's a very natural phenomenon that we all go through. And I think we just need to be patient with ourselves and know that this is normal and recognize that this is just exactly that, like a need to grow and a need to change in our lives. So that's like kind of why we're going through these tips. But number 1 is just like, be patient with yourself. And
enjoying the process too helps you be present in the moment as well. Yeah. Because I know for me sometimes, I mean, I have all the patience in the world, but when it comes to myself, I'm like, why am I not at this particular phase in my life? And I think sometimes too, with me being at the age that I'm at, and I see the friends that I have, and we're all the same age, you know, maybe they're a year older or whatever, but they all have careers, they all have jobs, they all have partners, some of them have kids, and I'm like, damn, I don't have anything. And for me, it's like, I don't want to rush any of this stuff, but at the same time, I'm like, I feel like I need to like keep going and keep moving. Like, I need to have a husband by next Friday. Like, what is going on? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But for me, it's just like, I have to learn how to be patient and I have to learn how to go, you know what, it's okay. However long it takes me to get to next Friday, I'm going to enjoy the hell out of that. I keep saying next Friday as if next Friday is like an important event. It's nothing. But, you know what I mean? But just like taking time to really just be present in the moment is really important.
Yeah, and I feel like something that like I've heard before, and I'm sure maybe some of you have heard this before, but don't compare your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 20.
I like that though.
Yeah, like I feel like a lot of us are just like, oh, I have to be at chapter 20 right now, but you've only just started reading your book, okay?
Right. Well, it's one of those things where it's like you wouldn't pick up an actual book and go straight to the middle.
Yeah, like you gotta enjoy the process, enjoy the journey. They say that the journey is what matters more than the destination, you know? Yeah. So number 4, here we go, guys. This is when we're actually like, you know, starting to do shit. Set small goals.
Yes. Small goals aren't like, oh, I need to drop 110 pounds by tomorrow at 3.
Right, because we all set that as a goal.
But I'm just saying, like, unrealistic goals. Like, set realistic small goals.
Yeah, like, and that can be drink a glass of water every morning when I get out of bed for a week. That is small. Like, if that's what you need to do, then set those tiny ass goals. Because like I know for me, getting 8 hours of sleep, that's a goal. Like, and just like trying to like make those small goals that are like realistic, and it's gonna take time. And don't just be like, okay, now I want to get unstuck, so I need to do all of these big projects right now. Like, I'm gonna like write this book in a month, and like, no, that's not gonna work, because then you're just gonna get burnt out, and we don't want that either. We want something that's sustainable for our life. You know what I mean? Like, we want to keep making progress, not just keep getting back in this phase of being stuck, which will happen if you burn yourself out. So, yeah. But yeah, setting small goals is a big one. It's small, but it's big. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Keeping those, like, keep active small goals, I think will help too. And then eventually those small goals will lead to bigger ones too.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But like, you got to build that momentum. Like, you have to like get yourself back into, you know, like, and also with having small goals, once you start like achieving those small goals, I feel like you are going to build up momentum, because you're going to be like, man, I can do this. Like, you're going to start believing in yourself more, because if you set goals that you can't achieve and you don't achieve them, that's going to discourage you from going forward as well.
Oh, yeah.
So, small goals are important.
And I like what you just said, because that kind of goes into number 5, which is do it without having expectations.
Yeah. So kind of like what I was thinking when we wrote this one down. For example, like I'm working on this choreographic piece. It's a contemporary, like urban piece that I'm doing for the dance stage, the concert stage, whatever you call it. And with this piece, I sometimes have to be like, okay, I want to work on this piece. I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to record it. And when I watch the video afterwards, I get so upset because it's not fully choreographed and finished, you know, like the first time I record it. I'm like, wait a second. That doesn't make any sense. Why would it be? It's like I go into it expecting it to be really good just from the start. Right. But like I barely started working on it. So like if you expect it to be like super great from the beginning or even perfect or anything like that, like it's just not going to happen. So I think going into it, just being like, this may be complete, absolute trash, but at least I'm getting started. Right. At least you're doing it. Like, so go into it without having expectations of it to come out to be anything other than like just absolute garbage.
Right. And I like number 5 a lot, because my first writing professor that I ever had, she was amazing. She doesn't teach at the school anymore, unfortunately, because other than that, I would have been like, everybody needs to take her class. Even if you're not a writing major, just like take her class. But I was really glad I was able to have her for the first year. She was my professor for semester 1 and 2. And one of the things she always says is like, you know, approach your writing, but also just your situation too. Mm-hmm. But she was like, approach your writing with an open mind and have no expectations. Just get your thoughts down on the page. And if it comes out trash, it comes out trash. If it comes out good, it comes out good. Yeah. Just approach it with positive thoughts and positive attitudes. And for me, I have, like, I'm not a perfectionist in life at all. Like, I'm organized, but I don't care. You know what I'm saying? Right. Like, but for me, when it comes to my writing, or it comes to like my process of growing up and existing and physical or whatever, I have this weird perfectionist attitude. And so when I go in to do certain things, I'm like, it has to be perfect off jump, and that's not fair. So number 6 is to change your routines. Yeah. This is something like, I'm very, very routine based type of person. Like, I like to get into the group of routine, and I like to stick to those routines, but sometimes my routines are what is making me feel stuck, because I'm not living enough. I'm not experiencing enough stuff. Like, I'm just stuck in the same thing over and over and over again. Kind of like we were talking about before, letting your patterns rule you, or just doing the same thing over and over and over again. That's a big reason for being stuck. And so I think just introducing change can be a major helper into like just getting you to like get out of your head. And I feel like it can help you like experience new things and like get inspired and feel more creative. So I think changing your routines is a big one. If you're anything like me, you're very routine based, and I am not routine based at all. Mm-hmm. I'm only routine based when it comes to certain things. Like if I have something to do that day, then you know I'm gonna write down, you know, my itinerary, whatever. But just every day, normally, I kind of wake up and I just fly by the seat of my pants. Like, it just, nothing, you know what I'm saying? Right. Like, I don't have any routine, so think changing the fact that I don't have a routine will help as well. And I think kind of adding on to this as well, changing your routines, but also just don't be afraid of change, period. We haven't even we didn't really talk about much about that, but I kind of, as soon as you started talking about change, I was like, oh, just change, period.
Yeah, change is good. It helps you grow.
Exactly. So number 7.
Forward thinking.
Forward thinking.
Forget about those skeletons in your closet and all the people you've murdered.
Right. Who cares about them? Be positive, okay? Don't focus on the negative, as Kevin Hart would say, you know?
Yeah.
Just, you gotta think forward and think positive. But don't think, as my dad always says, don't put the cart before the horse. You know what I'm saying? You know,
no,
it's
I
like,
don't know what you're saying.
But just like, you know, you gotta be positive on everything, but don't think too far ahead where you get jumbled up. Yeah. I remember one time, I used to run track when I was a little bit younger, and one of my coaches, her name was Coach Macbeth, I'll never forget this. She used to always tell us, like, if you look behind, you're going to slow down. Mm-hmm. And so she was like, if you don't believe me, let's test this theory. So she would take us out to the track, and we'd be running. And she's like, turn around. And we'd turn around. And all of a sudden, all the other people have passed us by. And so I think that's, you know.
Yep.
I don't know where I was going with that. But you get it.
Don't get stuck in the past. Don't keep looking back. I mean, sometimes it's good to reflect just so you can see how far you've come, but don't dwell. Yeah. Know that things will and can change for the better. You just have to make that happen. And so focus on the positive things. Like, if things aren't awesome in your life right now, just focus on how awesome they will be next week or next month or next year.
Exactly.
You can make it through it, guys. You can. I believe in all of you.
This. And finally, number 8.
Be accountable for yourself.
That is so important.
Because none of this matters if you're not accountable.
Right.
I feel like accountability, a lot of people think of like, just like, oh, I'm going to make myself do something. That's not necessarily it. But it's like, be accountable for whatever happens to you. Like, it may not be your fault that something happens to you, like if something bad happens, but you're accountable for how you take control of that. How you handle it. Yeah, and how you handle that, and how you handle yourself, and how you overcome that. So be accountable for those things, because if you're not accountable, you're going to end up being a victim. And if you're a victim, you're not going to be happy. Like, you're just going to blame everything else in your life. I mean, if you're a victim, you're going to be a victim. You're not going to be able to make any changes. Yeah. And so I feel like accountability is powerful because it allows you to really, you know, take control of your life and what happens to you in your life. You're responsible for your life. Yeah. Nobody else is. Don't blame something on someone else when it's not their fault. Yeah. You are, and even if it is their fault, like even if they did murder your parents. Right. Well, I mean, just turn into Batman, and you saw how he turned out. So exactly. He's clearly well balanced, right? If you know anything about Bruce Wayne, he's obviously well balanced. So you can either turn to Bruce Wayne, or you can, you know, just move on. Just move on. Just be like, you know what, that person fucked up, but they're probably gonna go to jail and be caught. And if they're not, well, that's not my problem. I'm gonna move on with my life, find my own family, and be like, this is tragic, but I must not dwell. I must not dwell. I was gonna say I must not tell lies, like in Harry Potter, or brood, right? Like Bruce Wayne. Exactly. So, yeah. Anyways. Well, yeah. So I think that was all really fabulous. Wonderful. Yeah. That was us high-fiving. It was a solid high five. But I don't know. I think sometimes, but just, you know, kind of just to do like a quick summary, but like feeling stuck is really hard to get out of, because you just don't know what's going to happen. You just have to take a giant risk. You have to just dive into it. You just have to jump. Like, I don't know where the hell I'm going to go and where it's going to lead to, but I'm just going to... YOLO. Yeah, exactly. I got to do it, man. So before we end the podcast, shall we go over, like, the ways to get unstuck again? Like, just recap? Gia, you want to do it? All right. So ways to get unstuck. Number 1, evaluate and identify the source of stuckness. Number 2, force yourself to be proactive, also known as get the fuck up. Number 3, be patient with yourself and enjoy the process. Don't rush through anything. Number 4, set small goals. Number 5, do it without having expectations. Number 6, change your routines or get an actual routine if you're me. Number 7, forward thinking. And finally, number 8, be accountable for yourself. So, well, I guess we're going to wrap it up. That's the end of the podcast. Thank you all for listening in. We really appreciate you, and we love to hear back from you guys. Email or commentary. This is going to be on YouTube, so you can open up the description box right now, and you can look at our social media accounts
and how to get in touch with us. You can suggest podcast topics. You can send it to the email that's down below in the description box.
Or you can just comment, whichever suits your fancy. If you have like a longer comment, maybe email is probably better. But yeah.
And so one of the things that we want to do at the end of every podcast is we want to leave you with a bit of inspiration, a bit of helpful words from
Bruce Lee.
From Bruce Lee. Well, it won't be for Bruce Lee every time, or maybe it can. I don't know. But the quote of the day, the quote of the podcast that I want to leave you with is this: if you spend too much time thinking about a thing, you'll never get it done.